This is The Runwave, candid chats with real runners about topics that affect the running community. This show is sponsored by Midstrike Magazine, the first diverse digital running magazine. Use code TheRunwave to save 20% off of your magazine subscription. Visit midstrikemagazine.com for more details. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Runway Podcast. I am your host, Kim. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. If you are a return listener or watcher, welcome back to the show. I appreciate you tuning in week after week. This will be a very special and different episode because I am interviewing two teenagers from the organization Future Ancestors. They are a group of students who are in Louisville, Kentucky. They are putting on their first road race in honor of Breonna Taylor. They have an in-person race coming up in June and a virtual option as well, which I'm hoping that all of you at home will register for. I will leave a link down below in the description. The virtual option is $35. You can register for the race or you can donate to their cause. And, you know, it was great interviewing two young women. It makes you realize that the future is still bright. It's not all lost on this new generation. There are some of them out there that are doing good things within their community. And, you know, we have something to look forward to in our older age from the generation that is coming up behind us. So let's get into the interview. All right, everyone, please welcome Nubia Ali and Jamia Fletcher, members of Future Ancestors to the Runway Podcast. How are you, ladies?
Great. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. I know it's been a while to get us connected. You know, I've been kind of busy, and I know you ladies are busy as well with school and getting your race going. So I'm happy that you guys were persistent in getting on the show. I'm happy to have you guys.
Of course. Thank you for inviting us.
We are happy to be here.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about Future Ancestors. What exactly is this organization?
Okay, just to reintroduce myself, my name is Nubia Ali, and I'm the Executive Director of the Future Ancestors. So we have been active since December of 2020, and we are a woman of color and student of color-led social justice group from Wagner High School in Louisville, Kentucky. And just with our whole project, we have been working to kind of get more justice for, you know, the Breonna Taylor tragedy that happened in the city of Louisville, and as well as other injustices that we see, such as civil rights, LGBTQ plus matters, immigration, prison reform, and things like that, because those are all things that we as a group are passionate about. So we wanted to kind of create a project to just encompass all of that and kind of bring all of that together in one space. So we've just been working on the Race for Justice since then. But yeah, there's like 10 of us, I think, if I counted that right. There's like 10 of us. Like I said, mainly women of color, mainly student of color-led group. And yeah, we're mainly juniors. We're mainly seniors, but we have like a few juniors for, you know, the rest. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. So you guys, go ahead.
Oh, you're okay. I was just going to say we the group, we were like formed based out of the Justice Now initiative that they're doing in JCPS right now. So we were all like recommended to like the people who were like doing the work through JCPS. Like I think all of us were recommended by teachers as well, like to join this group and stuff, like people who have like been vocal and passionate about like social justice issues. So yeah, we actually, like, I knew most of everybody, like, going in, but, you know, everybody was kind of recommended, so, you know, it was very, like, random the way that, like, our group came together, you know what I'm saying, because we didn't all really know each other that well, like, going into it.
So when you guys say school, I just want to let my audience know that these ladies are in high school. So you both are in your senior year of high school, right?
Yes,
Yes,
thank God.
ma'am.
And just repeat the name of your school again.
Wagner High School.
Okay. And so is Future Ancestors, is it an organization based in your school system, or did you guys start it outside of school?
So for this, like Jamia has stated, we were born out of the Justice Now initiative that was brought to Jefferson County Public Schools. So we kind of started as an extracurricular kind of club thing, and we were mainly virtual since everything happened like in December of 2020 with COVID. So everybody was kind of at home, and it was an after school thing. So after our classes, we would just hop on a meeting for, maybe 2.5 hours or so, just start planning and just kind of working things out of how we wanted this to look. So I will say it definitely was something that we had to do outside of school, but thankfully as we were able to transition back into the building, we were able to get it formed into a class. So we have that dedicated work period between I think 9:30 to 10:20 Monday through Friday to work on our project and just kind of like see each other really outside of like a computer screen or something. So we have kind of made that transition, but we did start as like an outside of school and extracurricular kind of thing.
Okay. Do you have support from any teachers or faculty members in your school?
Yeah, a lot of the teachers are really supportive of like our group and everything. Like most of the teachers that we have at our school and like the faculty are definitely like really supportive of our project, and they do like go out of their way to like vocalize that. We have like our school in general is supportive. Sometimes we need to, drag them a little bit to to kind of help us out, to kind of like spread the word about our project and everything. But yeah, we have been able to do a lot of things like through this group and like through this project that have, really highlighted like some positive aspects of JCPS as well. So the schools are, very supportive of the project and everything.
Okay. Now you mentioned JCPS. What does that stand for?
So
Yeah, so
JCPS. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're okay. JCPS is Jefferson County Public Schools, so that's like the public school system, like within like all of Louisville all of Louisville is considered Jefferson County. So this whole county, like all the public schools that align with the county.
So for those of us that don't know, how big of a city is Louisville? Because we know it's in Kentucky, but for those of us outside of that area, is it like a small city, mid-size, big city? What would you consider it?
Me personally, I would say that Louisville is one of the bigger, more like known cities in Kentucky. Because like I know like a lot of people like, how like there's some states where they have their cities. They're like, oh, like, we're not from Florida, we're from Miami or something like that. Like it's kind of like that with Louisville. So it's like, hey, like we're not from Kentucky, we're from Louisville. So like when people think of Kentucky, they think of the Kentucky Derby. They think of like KFC, all that stuff, which is like the most prominent in Louisville. So I would say Louisville's pretty big. Especially like when it comes to like other cities, maybe Lexington is like maybe just as big, but like I don't know about all that. But I would say
Louisville's a pretty big city because with the Jefferson County schools, I think there are like over 20 like 5 high schools in the district, and I know a lot of counties with not even 25 schools period. Like so. We are a pretty big city, I think.
So have you two lived in the city your entire lives?
Yes, for the most part. I moved to Florida just like a little bit like when I was like a little kid, but like since then, like I've been in Louisville. Yeah.
I am not from here. I grew up on the East Coast, and then I moved to Ohio for a little bit. So I've only lived in Louisville for like 5 or 6 years now, I think. But most of like my like good memories that like I can remember a lot are from here. So I would consider this like one of the places that I like grew up.
Hmm. So we all know that Breonna Taylor was murdered by the police in Louisville. They knocked down her door. We've all heard the story, and we heard the story. It made national news much later, after it had happened. But I'm sure on the ground there in Louisville, you guys probably heard of it. Well, did you hear of it right after it happened, or did it make news, and then that's when everything started to get traction there?
Um, I will say we heard about it. Still kind of recent, just because it was in our city. But when everything was happening, like we didn't hear about it maybe until like a few hours, or maybe even like a few days later.
Hmm.
Because everything happened on March 13th, and it happened like in the really early hours like of the day, maybe like
Hmm.
3 a.m., like around that area. So of course, many of us were asleep, and of course, just with everything that was going on at that time, like it wasn't
Yeah.
made breaking news in this area. So we kind of woke up to it. We were just like, hey, like the police came, kicked down somebody's door, someone's dead. Like we don't know like what really happened. So it's like as time went on, there were more articles coming up about it. But it's like I remember like my mom was the one that had told me about it, and I
Hmm.
don't know how she heard about it, but like she told me, and at that time like I looked it up. There was only like one or two news articles like that day, like at that time,
Hmm.
that was really kind of talking about like what was going on. But like the victim, like she wasn't named. Like it
Hmm.
didn't say anything like about her. Like it just stated that she was just like a black woman, but like and she was just from Louisville, Kentucky, and like that was it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, because I think March 13th was the day that like the last day all the schools had in session before COVID,
Hmm.
and it wasn't really until the George Floyd story started getting traction that we really started talking about, like, I guess, Breonna Taylor's situation. Because I know
Hmm.
when when his case got a lot of like attention, I know there was like uh maybe three or four other names that got like kind of thrown around as well, that like was like, oh wow, this happened to George Floyd, would this also happened here too? And so there was a couple of names that rose out of that: Breonna Taylor, Elijah, I believe his last name is
McCain,
McAtee.
Hmm.
No, David
that's David.
McAtee.
I think Elijah McCain, if I'm not
Yes, Elijah
mistaken.
Hmm.
McCain, David
Yeah.
McAtee, and George Floyd were like the four names that I heard the most around like that time. So it was around that time that like her story and what happened to her started getting attention.
Hmm. So how did her hearing about what happened to her affect you guys personally? Because she was older than you, but not really by that much. She could have been your older sister, your cousin, your aunt. So how did it affect you personally, hearing about her story?
It was terrifying. Like, it was really, really scary. And, obviously you hear stories like this all the time, as sad as that is. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, it kind of like reminds you like how like fragile you are, and like how kind of like you know, she was asleep in her house. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So where do we like draw the line of where we're supposed to feel safe? You know what I'm saying? And I can remember when the verdict came out that day, and it was just like the energy in the air was just like off, like you could feel it. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like it was really, really difficult. And especially like through this project, we've talked about her a lot, and we've spoken with people who are like very close to her. So it's like it's a really like tough subject, and it's like it's just extremely like sad. So it was one of those moments that definitely reminds you how like fragile life is and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Jamia. Just thinking about that, like it's heartbreaking, really, because it's like to know that we grew up in the same city as her,
Hmm.
and to know that like everything happened miles away from where some of my family members live and
Hmm.
where some of my friends live. And like you said, to know that like that could have been someone else that I'm close to, it definitely, I had a friend like who said like she was even scared to like go to sleep like after it happened because like just out of that fear of just knowing that like Jamia said, like how fragile your life is, and to know that at any second you could be placed in a position to where you're fighting for yourself and that you're fighting to keep yourself safe or having to fight to keep someone else safe. So I think like just that, and then just knowing like with the verdict and everything else that happened like following March 13th, like it was just like, it was like I don't even like know the city I grew up in anymore. Like it's like really, it changes, it puts a lot of things into perspective because like we're not as far along as I thought we were and that I wanted us to be. So to know that we're still kind of stuck in those times where we're still not at, where we need to be, where we're not equal with each other, like that was just kind of like re-emphasizing. Of course, like that's scary, obviously, because like, we're still kids, we're still here, and it's like to know that like someone just a few years older for us who was doing things for the community, doing things for herself, to know that she was taken by the people that were meant to protect us and protect everybody else, like it was really like scary pretty much, and it was just heartbreaking to know like that's what happened to her.
So it's been over 2 years since she was murdered. Is it still being talked about? Is it still a story in Louisville? Because I know national news, we don't really hear anything, about it anymore. But, I follow running groups that are still keeping her name alive and, still trying to keep her at the forefront. But what's going on locally there?
I'd say locally, there's definitely still a strong like drive for justice, like locally, because we do a lot of things like where we would hear her name. So maybe we are a little bit biased because the circles we run in would be the types of people who would keep her name alive. But I hear her name every single day, and I definitely see something about her, I think, every single day with like the people who I follow and like, just the local things going on. There are multiple murals painted of her downtown that people can find. So it's not very hard to hear her name or to come across her story like living in Louisville, I'd say. So I think her, like, definitely people are still talking about it over here.
Okay. Did you want to add something, Nubia?
I was just gonna say, kind of like for me, it's kind of like the opposite, because like Jamia said, like we do run in circles where we do hear her name constantly because that is part of what our project is about. But it's like ever since like March of 2020, like, obviously like the post and like the awareness and the continued need for justice for Breonna Taylor, like that has kind of just steadily like decreased. And it's not to say that people don't care, but it's just that at the time, like it was just Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, David Mack, like it was like person after person after person. And like, I know that's like a lot to keep up with, and it's draining, but like, I would say like, I think here in the city, like, I know people still talk about it because I know, like, obviously it's still important. But I just think as far as, like, coming from people's mouths and, like, the number of, like, posts that I've seen, like, outside of us and the people that we associate with, like, I really don't see, like, as much, like, I don't know the word for it. Like, I don't see as much, like, attention to it as, like, we used to. So I think that's, like, a big motivator in our project is to continue to, like, bring that to the forefront of people's mind and continue to get justice for her.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. Nowadays, people's, their, life cycle of news is like, it's so fast. So, we were in a moment in 2020, and being that the officers were not charged with her murder, it kind of like, no one's talking about it much anymore, which is sad. But you guys are, doing what you can do to keep her memory alive and still fight for justice. So I commend you for that. So this is a running podcast, and you're on the show to promote a race that you all are organizing. So tell me a little bit about this race. Is there a runner amongst your group?
So I think the runner amongst the group will probably be our teacher sponsor, Mr. Davis. Me personally, I do not run, but I will be, in the golf cart cheering everyone on because that's just not my thing. But I will say the runner in the group is definitely Mr. Davis. We got a few walkers. I'll walk. But aside from that, I think he's the big runner of the group.
I'm all leg, and I'm like almost 6 feet tall, so you would expect me to be a runner, but you don't want to see me out there trying to run to anyone. That won't be something cute.
Well, you can always walk, or you can walk and jog. Walk and jog, or just jog.
We're gonna be doing all of that.
So, whose idea was it to do a road race? Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, so our group member Alayla, who is currently not here with us, she's one of our juniors. She had the idea of doing a race, just because, like we said, just coming off of the pandemic and everybody being at home, just eating, sleeping, not really being active like, we could. We just wanted to get out, just get active again. So she had the idea of doing a race, specifically a road race through the west end of Louisville. But we've had some issues with that, so we'll get into that in a bit. But she had the idea of doing the 26 miles for each year of Breonna Taylor's life through the west end of Louisville, just to keep everyone moving and just kind of show the city of Louisville's progress from injustice from like so long ago. So.
So you mentioned that you wanted it to be the marathon distance, which is 26.2 miles. So what happened with the city? I read on your website that the police were no longer supporting large events, or what happened when you tried to get permits for the race?
Lord.
Speak your truth.
Yeah. So that was a whole ordeal. So we have been kind of fighting with like, the people who like do races, because obviously we're 17-year-olds. We have not organized a marathon before, so we have had to reach out to a lot of people to help us out, and we've just been there's been just stuff popping up, it seems, so we had a route finalized, and we submitted it, and they basically told us that there was no way we were going to be able to do it because it was too long. This was originally, I think, like the whole 26 miles that we wanted to submit, and they said that the cost of police would be too much, and they were no longer doing big events like this after COVID. And even if they were, we would need a cop at every street corner. So I think the price for police alone was like $20,000 or something like that. And we just, that one of the reasons why was because of the police presence. It was really difficult for us to get that there, especially with all of the money and everything. And then we tried to submit a permit, but then I think it never even got submitted to the city. We tried to submit it, and then every week or something, they'd come back and be like, well, actually, you're missing this. And then we'd give it to them, and then the next week it'd be like, and you're also missing this. So it was kind of like, it felt like they were prolonging that process on purpose instead of just giving us a list of what we needed to send them. Every week they would come out with something new. And then we found out that it was never even submitted, and that the cost of police presence there was too much going on with that. And we were basically just told that there was very low chances that we were going to be able to do a street race successfully. And obviously that was one of the worst things I think we could have ever wanted to hear. So it is really, really difficult bouncing back as a group after that, because this news is also pretty fresh. We didn't know that we were going to have to make some really big adjustments to our race until a couple of weeks ago. So trying to navigate that and also adapt and do something that we're all wanting to get behind as a group has been the most difficult thing as well. So it's just been crazy trying to work with the city and get our permits together and all of that.
So do you feel that the city didn't want your race to happen and they were being difficult with helping you along your journey to get the permits?
Yes, I definitely will say the city was being a little difficult when it did come to submitting our permits because at first the biggest concern was how intrusive it was on surrounding neighborhoods, especially because we were going in the West End. So that was a big concern. So when we had to adjust it and we had the idea of doing 5K to 10K loops that could equal the distance of a full marathon of 26.2 miles or a half marathon of 13.1 miles, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, like that's that's cute, but like that's not enough. Like it has to be something that's like
Mm-hmm.
more than that. So we're like, okay. So we submitted both ideas for the 5K and the 10K loops. 10K didn't go through. It was still too long or something like that. And we just had the 5K, which would equal the distance of like 13.1 miles or 26.2 miles. So we're like, okay. So we submitted the permit for that already. And like Jamia said, it was, oh, okay, well, what about this? What about this? You need to submit this. You need to relook at this. Like, it was just a whole bunch of like running around. And at this point, we already are like, what, 2 months out, 2.5 months out. And we're like, okay, like, we want to, because registration is open. So, we know that we have runners and we know that we have people that support us. But it's like, at the end of the day, what are they going to run if we can't get this together, So we were like, okay. So then eventually it just came to the whole, well, your permits were never submitted. We're like, what do you mean? So we're like, okay, so what have we been doing for the past, month, 2 months to kind of get everything where it needed to be? So ultimately, like Jamia said, this happened like 2 weeks ago, I think. And to be completely transparent, it was like one of the biggest, probably most like, I don't even want to say heartbreaking, but literally like heartbreaking things that like the
It
group
was
has had to experience.
devastating.
Like it was really like
It was
a
devastating.
because it's like
Yeah.
we worked to kind of like get the justice and kind of show what all can be fixed in the city. But I think because of our message and because of, maybe some of the things that we are representing as, women and students of color, that's not
Mm-hmm.
always accepted or encouraged by certain people. So to know that we're kind of like, okay, but then the day, like, we're not going to dial back our purpose and what it is that we're doing to make the next person feel comfortable, because that's not how you get justice and that's not how things get fixed. So we were just going to keep it, and we just have to end up doing a track race. And, we can talk a little bit more about that. But, yeah, definitely it was really difficult. And I know that, like, some of us are, like, still, like, recuperating from that, because in a way, like, it felt like we couldn't do everything that we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of was, like, really disappointing on our end, but we still wanted to make sure that we gave everyone an event, and we wanted to make sure that we still gave everyone like what it is that we promised them.
Mm-hmm. So who are you dealing with at the city of Louisville?
The city of
What was the name of the woman who was talking to us when we found out about the permits? Who was there representing the city?
I do not recall her name exactly, but we found out about it over like a conference call. Like we were like it was virtual, and we have been working with the Louisville Urban League, and they have kind of helped, donate their facilities to us to use for the event. So that is where everything will be held. But we were on a call with them, a few representatives from the city, and our race director. So we kind of just found out about it. I really cannot recall her name. I cannot. But
yeah, when it comes to most of like the like interactions between like the city side of things, that was like mainly conversations that were held with our race director.
yeah,
Our race director is DC Timing. I don't know if that like means any, like I don't know if like you recognize that name or not, but it's that's like who we were like, having, run more of the, like permits, helping us out with that, helping us get everything approved, all
Mm-hmm.
of that stuff. He took that role very early on. So most of those conversations were with him. But I remember because I remember there was a woman there, but I can't remember her name.
So this DC timing, were they like the intermediary trying? What I'm trying to get at is, was there ever hope that you were going to get these permits in the beginning and it was just dragged along, or was it like up in the air from the get-go?
To be completely transparent, I would say it was a little bit of both. I think the up in the air part comes from the fact that we had to do so much, adapting for the route. So to go from a 26-mile straight shot through the west end of Louisville, that was one thing. But then to loop it and make it less intrusive and make it not stretch as far, that kind of changed the dynamic of everything. But we were promised or, encouraged and just really persuaded to the fact that we were able to do a road race and that we were actually able to be just like on the road, like running through, like, visiting the neighborhood so we could really see just how beautiful the west end of Louisville is. But I think just kind of with the permits and just the back and forth from the city, I think it kind of just, kind of went more up and up in the air as time went on. And it kind of just was like that towards like the end when we got the news.
So DC Timing, they're a timing organization. They do race production, scholastic timing, whatever. So is there someone from that company that is actually helping you to put on the race, or are they just doing the timing, like the bibs and the timing mats?
So we work with David. I know specifically he is helping with the timing. So when the runners are running on the track, like he's doing that, the bibs, everything else. But as far as actually helping us plan the event, he has helped put us in like contact with like artists, graphic designers, and people for like t-shirts, a logo, and things like that. So we have worked with him, like, kind of just, expanding our network and talking more about the project because he is someone that can like still market for us and push what it is that we're doing. But for the most part, he is just helping us with like the timing, like the actual like, race stuff that'll be happening on the day of the race.
So their company is not Black owned, right? Doesn't look like it.
No, I do not believe it.
So your school, is it predominantly Black?
Yes.
I would say yes.
Yeah. Wagner is, I think, over 64% African American, I think.
Okay.
Or I think those are the statistics when I was a freshman, I believe.
Okay, so you guys had to pivot. The race is no longer a marathon. It's a shorter distance. So where is the race going to take place now?
Yes, so now we unfortunately do have to keep everything confined to the Louisville Urban League Norton Sports and Learning Complex. So they have a beautiful indoor and outdoor track. So we have turned it into a track race. So registrations are still open and everything, the symbolism is still there. So instead of doing the 26 and 13 miles, we want to do the 26 and 13 laps. And like, we want this to be an annual thing as well. And, we recognize that this is not like the exact vision that we like have had from the jump, so we've had to do a lot of adapting and a lot of changing. So our hopes for this project is to always make it bigger and better than it was the year before. But this year we've, had to, go over a lot of challenges and roadblocks. So we are doing a track race at the Norton Sports and Learning Complex. And we're doing a group 26 lap relay and then also a single, I think, is it 13 laps or is it, it's 13 laps.
And so we're doing a 26 laps. And just to kind of talk more about the symbolism, because I know like we reference it just because it's so common to us. But we are doing a 26 lap relay. It's going to be a 5-person team, so it's 26 laps around the track for each year of Breonna Taylor's life. And then we plan to do a 1.3 mile, which is kind of similar to the number 13, because everything happened on March 13th. So 1.3 miles is roughly, I think, 5 laps around the track, and that is our individual option. And then there's also a virtual option where runners can run through a park, through their neighborhood, or wherever to their preferred distance. They could also probably do that in a relay as well if they wanted to, but that one is mainly marketed as an individual thing.
So for the virtual option, because I'm sure we're going to get some listeners for the runway to sign up for your virtual option, what do you get when you sign up for the virtual race?
So when signing up for the virtual race, first of all, starting with the cost, it is $35, and that is on our website, futureancestors502.org. But also with that, we'll probably give you guys some swag, so just like a bag, T-shirts, and just things to kind of just show them, like, hey, like, you did the race for justice. We'll see you next year, kind of thing. So we are still working to get T-shirts and to kind of get medals and things like that to kind of share with our participants, and those will either be mailed or distributed in some way, but we will make sure that everyone gets one who participates.
Okay. And how is your support with your local community? Do you have any businesses like giving donations? Because you're going to need water, you're going to need sports drinks, maybe, snacks, bananas, things like that. Do you have any local organizations that are helping you guys out?
Yes, the Louisville Urban League has been one of our saving graces throughout this. They are a wonderful organization, I think, stemming from the National Urban League. So they're the local Louisville chapter. It's overran by a phenomenal woman named Sadiqa Reynolds. She is amazing, and the Louisville Urban League has helped us out so much. Like, the way they believe in this group of high schoolers has given me hope for the future, because they have really been, with us the whole time and supporting us. And they are the people who own the Norton Sports and Learning Complex, where we are holding the track race as well. And they very kindly donated that facility. So we, are using that facility, which I think has a regular rate of $10,000. So we have, so they have definitely, and not only that, but they have also helped us with a lot of things. Earlier in the year, we took a trip to San Diego, California, to talk about, our class and everything, and they, helped fund that trip as well. So they have been really working with us and really helping us out throughout the entire process.
Okay. So I read on your website that you have a documentary that is kind of being filmed of your whole process. Who is filming you guys, and like what is going to be the outcome of this documentary? What are you going to use it for?
So predominantly it is us filming ourselves, but we have worked with, other media outlets such as Best Dad Media here in Louisville. He has worked with other groups from the Justice Now initiative, and he's recorded them. So he has recorded clips and things of us when we go to events that we can use in the documentary. And we have also worked with Luck Laboratories. We've worked with Lillian Campbell and James Michael Marshall. They're both from California. So they kind of came down 1 week in November, and they helped us interview a bunch of community leaders for the documentary, and just things kind of put together to just kind of show what it is that we've been doing so far. But pretty much at the beginning, we had the idea of kind of making the documentary about other people and making it about their lives, just kind of how they've been impacted by the injustice that we're fighting for. But we're kind of okay, so, we were thinking about that until, Mr. Marshall, he was like, okay, but how are you guys really going to get how they feel about these things, and how are you really going to show that to whoever's watching? So we're like, okay, well, maybe we can't do that. So we're like, okay, so let's try to find something and pivot and make it about us, since we're the ones that are planning the race. It has not always been fun, smiles, and rainbows. It's just been work. And this has been 2 years worth of working and experience and networking to get to where we are. So we're like, okay, maybe let's make it about us. So we do vlogs really often. Whenever we go out anywhere, we try to vlog. And these are also seen on our social media, because we're trying to establish our social media presence as well. So mainly Instagram. We're working on TikTok. We have a Twitter. And we're thinking about Facebook, just to kind of continue the outreach to more people. But these are clips that we want to use to put in the documentary, and just to kind of show what all we have had to go through in these past 2 years to kind of make the race for justice happen.
Yeah. The documentary will be kind of like the way that we, can look at all of our progress like in one place. Like we want to just kind of like film like our process, like making the race as a group of teenagers from Louisville who, wanted to, talk about social justice in their communities. So, we're just trying to film our process and, share our ideas with anybody who, wants to listen. So that's, what we hope to get out of the documentary and everything. And that is, oversaw by one of our group members, Crescence. She's like handles all of that and handles it so much better than I could, because she has to like edit everything, and we are not professional anything, so it's difficult, but yeah.
So there were quite a few charities that a portion of the proceeds from the race are going to go to. Tell me how you came up with which charities you've chosen and why in particular that you've picked these charities to contribute to.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, girl. Just all you.
All right. So I would say, like I said earlier, there were injustices that we have seen in the city of Louisville that us as a group and us as individuals were passionate about. So our organizations deal with civil rights, LGBTQ plus matters, environmental justice, ableism, immigration, and prison reform. So most of these organizations, we had to, we were just lucky enough to be able to network with these people who were attached to these organizations. So, for example, for the civil rights and justice and just things around that, we have the Roots 101 African American Museum here in Louisville, Kentucky, and we have had the pleasure of working with Mr. Collins for just, I think, the whole kind of 2 years that we've kind of just been planning this. He was definitely one of our earliest connections, and he kind of told us what it is that he does at at his museum. And you just everything that's about, which is about, empowering Black people and just kind of bringing awareness and just, the equality that's still needed in today. So we were like, okay, you want to be a partner? So we just pretty much started working with him. And that was just our one organization for civil rights. And then we kind of just had to do our research and continue to network to find the other organizations that deal with each injustice as well. So we are doing Queer Kentucky for LGBTQ plus matters. We're doing Americana and La Casita Center for immigration. We're doing Mattingly Edge for ableism. And we're doing the Louisville Bell Project for prison reform. Did I miss any? Or is that it?
I think that is all of them.
Yeah.
I think because we're a very diverse group as well. Most of us are women of color. Most of us are also queer people of color. So there are a lot of people in our group who have things not only to lose but things to gain when it comes to living your life. So not only are we super passionate about getting that justice for ourselves, but getting that justice for people like us who cannot, who are in a position where they cannot try and do it themselves. So one of the biggest things that we were looking for when, looking for organizations to partner with and to raise money for, we just really wanted it to be people who are supportive of, not just us and what we're doing, but just of the people in their lives. And I think it's not only the organizations, and what they're doing, but the people who run it, as well. We like to meet those people and make sure that they're sane. So, but yeah, so we're a very diverse group. So we definitely felt it was really important to get a vast majority of organizations who we felt could really represent the type of message that we were trying to get out.
So Louisville is not really what do you guys consider the Midwest?
I consider it the Midwest, but I'm not from here. And everyone I say that to always wants to bite my head off. They're this is not the Midwest. And I'm
it's not really the South. You're the middle of the country,
yeah.
but
okay. I don't know. It's crazy because some people say
Well,
we're
we
like,
have Menards here, so I would
I
consider it the
look,
Midwest.
I don't know, but some people say like we're the most like northern city like in the South. If that make, I don't know how that works. I have no sense of direction. I don't know, but that's just what people say. So I'm like, okay, like
I
I
think
think
you're
we
you're
kind of like
Midwest because you're like diagonal
Yeah.
to Ohio, and that's like kind of the
I think
Midwest.
everybody outside of Kentucky would consider it the Midwest, but
Uh-huh.
yeah.
because
We, us,
also because we live in Louisville, I
Mm-hmm.
think people who live in Louisville don't want to admit that they live in the Midwest.
I was asking you how, you know, it's described geographically because you mentioned LGBTQ plus quite a few times. So
Yeah.
is the queer community accepted in Louisville? How is that there?
I'd say the queer community, well, I think firstly it's very different in other parts of Kentucky than it is in Louisville. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Louisville and Lexington are the bigger cities, and this is we do live in a red state, and but Louisville and Lexington are like blue cities. So for the most part, I'd say that like Louisville is like the more like accepting part of Kentucky. I do think just like pretty much everywhere, we do have a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think in our school specifically, there actually is a lot of like unfriendliness towards the LGBTQ community, which is one of the biggest reasons why going into this, it was one of the things that was on the forefront of my mind, because it really is like crazy the things that you hear, because like you don't feel that way. Like when you're not like someone who thinks that way, it's like you almost forget that that mindset exists.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
like hearing people like say like the disgusting things that they say about LGBTQ people just because they are in the LGBTQ community, is, you know, it is very, it's common here. I'd say because it is a bigger city, some of it is more, you know, swept under the rug because it's not as blatant or prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
Prevalent. Okay, I knew one of them was a word.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd say yes and no. It's yeah.
Do you guys have, because being from a big city like New York, you know, it's like the norm, not really, but kind of is, you know, it's not,
Yeah.
you know, so frowned upon, I guess, anymore, but you know, there's still stigma attached to it. Is there a community?
Right.
Do you have a community there that is just for you or for the LGBTQ plus of your age group?
Oh yeah, like at Wagner or like
Just in general, even outside of school.
so yeah, so 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I noticed that Wagner did not have a GSA or anything. Like they had gotten rid of it. So we did bring back the GSA. So we do have that at Wagner. And that's run by some LGBTQ teachers at our school who have really made, you know, a safe space at our school for LGBTQ kids, because there are a good amount of LGBTQ kids who go to our school, and there are a good amount of people who are, you know, who are a little ignorant who go to our school as well. So we thought it was really important to have that space there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are, like, I think the communities of LGBTQ people that I see are usually, you know, they meet each other through, you know, clubs and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Where it's, you know, there's been a safe space created so like they know they can trust these people like outside of school and like all of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm happy to hear that you actually have teachers that are, you know, LGBTQ, because I'm not going to tell you how old I am, But when I was growing up, that was not a thing. It did not exist at all. You know, we saw it on TV and, you know, it was from a distance. So I'm glad that you guys have, you know, those LGBTQ in your actual school that you can, you know, speak to about topics that affect you, and, you know, they understand because they went through it, and probably a totally different way from the way you guys are experiencing it now. So that's great. So tell me what's coming up for you, future ancestors. It's May. You're seniors in high school. What's up for you guys next year?
It's getting hot outside.
Literally hot. But I think just for kind of us, we do have it's just finals week and all that fun stuff coming up, and then senior week and graduation and everything like that. But approaching quickly is the Race for Justice. It's June 18th. It's Saturday, June 18th of this year. It's going to start at about 8 a.m. and it's going to end at about 3 p.m. So there will be the running events, which is the track race that has the distances of the 26 lap relay, and there's also the 5 laps, which equals 1.3 miles. Excuse me. And around this time, we'll also be doing a celebration event. So we plan to have community like speakers, organizations that are specifically Black owned, and just as well as just kind of just other organizations that we see that are just kind of, you know, associated with the injustice that we see, and just also people that we want there. They will have an opportunity to market their business and promote themselves, and just, you know, just kind of interact with each other. So our idea is to have, you know, maybe a few speakers at the beginning, when we know that we can kind of get everybody in the same place before everyone starts running or before people start leaving. So we plan to do that about 8 to 9, and then start staggering the runners so that they can run, you know, the relay or do the individual or something like that. So we're just still, you know, planning out the logistics of that because it is approaching soon. But there will be a celebration event going on the whole day, just to kind of keep those good vibes going, and just to give people something to do, you know, while they're waiting to run, or before they run, or after, or just anything like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And what are you guys' plans for next year? Are you going to college? You going to a trade school? What are you guys going to be up to?
Yeah, all of the seniors, except for one, I think, all of the seniors in the group except for one, we're all going to the same college. We're all going to the University of Louisville in the fall.
Oh, nice. That's great.
Yeah, we just love each other so much. We can't get enough of each other. You know, where would I be without Nubia Ali? Where would I be without you, girl? But yeah, so we're all going to college in the fall. Most of us will be at the same campus, and most of us will be local. So we do plan on working closely. Yeah, we do plan on working closely with this group for as long as you know, our schedules allow us to, and all of that. So we're really excited to see like the future. I'm so excited. It's gonna be great.
So are you handing off the reins of the organization to the juniors that are coming up behind you?
Yes,
I'd say so.
Plan. But they're going to have to do some recruiting because there's only 2 of them, and just given everything that we've had to go through these past 2 years, we were not just going to be like, here's everything, figure it out yourself. So we just want to help them so that it's not as much work on them. And, you know, hopefully just with this being our first year, we do have some more leeway, so we kind of know what it is that we want moving forward in the next year. So that'll hopefully make it easier for them. But, yeah, we're trying to make it as seamless as possible, considering it's only literally going to be 2 of them left. But yeah, aside from that, we're still just working on it, and we're trying to get this to be an annual event. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. Well, I'm happy that you guys were persistent and I was able to speak with you, because I told one of my running colleagues about your mission, and, you know, he said there's hope for the next generation. And that's how I felt as well, because you guys are growing up totally different than we grew up. You know, we didn't have the TikTok, the Instagram, all of these outside influences. So I'm happy that, you know, you youngsters are trying to make a difference within your community, and you reached out to me. So you're going to, you know, reach out to my audience and spread your cause nationwide, because I know a lot of people, y'all. So
I know that's right.
Yeah, we're going to get the run crews on your mission and get them registered and hopefully bring your numbers up and, just get the word out and help you guys out. So I want to thank you for being on the Runway podcast. Tell everybody where they can register for the event at. What is the website?
So our website is futureancestors502.org. So when you click it, there's going to be 2 boxes at the top. So one is just going to be registering for the race, and then another box is going to be talking about the race itself. And that's just kind of that was like our starter website. I'm not even going to lie. So it's kind of just what we built over these 2 years. But when you click the register, then that's when you really get to meet the members and just get to know a little bit about us. You guys can read our bios as well as sign up for all of the events. The prices are on there. So if there's anything else that you guys need, we do have our contacts on there. So if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Yep.
And
our contact and our social media is all on there as well. So definitely, if you check out our website, keep some tabs on us on social media, because we're always active on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we're trying to, get our audience up.
For those that are not runners, walkers, joggers, you have a donation link on there as well?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll be sure to include that donation link and get on Facebook, because that's where the old people hang out and the old people got money to spend. So y'all got to get on Facebook.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Get on Facebook.
They have money and all the time in the world.
Listen, my mother lives on Facebook. She's older and she got money. So that's where y'all need to be to promote your cause and just to solicit donations. That's a good place to be. So again, I want to thank you ladies for being on the Runway podcast. I'll be sure to leave all of their details down below so we can register for their race. This running community, we're a tight running community and we support our own. So we're going to be there to support you guys.
Thank you so
for
much
having us. We really appreciate everything.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Nubia and Jamia. I will leave the link to their race down below in the description. You can click on it. I'll have a link on my Instagram page. It'll be on the Runway website as well. Make sure you register for their virtual option of the race. I'm counting on you, the running community that is tuning into this show, to support these students in Louisville on their mission to keep Breonna Taylor's name alive and just to be young activists in their community, as well as supporting the LGBTQ plus community as well. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Runway podcast, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Later. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Runway. If you are a runner that has a story to tell, feel free to email hello@therunwave.com or shoot me a DM on Instagram @therunwave. Don't forget to follow The Runway on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We are The Runway on all platforms. Subscribe to our email list. It is listed down below in the notes of this show. And subscribe to The Runway on YouTube. The visual episode of this show will be posted there.